Welcome back. This is day 2 of the very first WorldSkills UK live online International Skills Summit. My name is Simon Lediman, I'm your host. I was here yesterday, and if you missed any of yesterday's amazing sessions that we had, we learned a huge amount of insight into many of the areas we've been discussing over the last couple of days, including benchmarking and funding and global success through competitions and finding new opportunities for technical education. You will be able to see some of them already, which are on the WorldSkills UK website, and all of the sessions will be there once the 2-day event draws to a close later today. I'm joined in this studio by Dr. Neil Bentley-Gockman, OBE. He is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of WorldSkills UK. And welcome to session 7. This is about where and what next for global excellence. And I'm going to go through some of our panel members this morning in this session. But as always, if you have any queries, questions, and some points you'd like to raise, please let me know. Please let me know what you'd like us to ask the panel on your behalf, or even if you want to explain some issues that perhaps from your own area of expertise that we might not otherwise understand. And actually, just before we go to the panel, Neil, if I can just ask you to frame this for us, because this is about competing not just amongst ourselves, not just about going for contracts at the expense of someone else in the country, but it's actually about raising all of our skills levels to the level of the best in the world.
Absolutely, and what you see through WorldSkills is it's very much, it's a collaborative effort as much as it is a competitive effort. And so, through the work we do on international benchmarking, thinking about, the conversation we're having with WorldSkills Australia or WorldSkills International or Chinese Taipei, all of that is done with a view to what can we learn from each other? How can we help young people across the world succeed better through the work that we're doing in skills competitions and competitions-based training? So there's a lot of insight sharing, a lot of best practice sharing, a lot of innovation sharing. Ultimately, of course, when it comes to it and you're in international competition, we're all competing for medals because we want to inspire and we want to demonstrate that we are practicing what we preach in terms of skills excellence. But it is also a fantastic international community, and we want to make sure that we're bringing the best of that back into the UK, so working with our national partners like the AOC and really thinking about how do we make sure we're giving colleges and training providers the ammunition they need and the know-how they need to drive up standards in teaching, training and assessment.
All right, many thanks for that. And as I say, we'll have questions coming through. And let's see if we can cross over to the panel. We've kind of framed the session nicely. Let's go to Trevor Schwenke, who is CEO of WorldSkills Australia. I'm guessing we're either, what are we doing, interrupting your dinner or perhaps time for slouching back on the sofa watching soap or something? What time is it over with you?
Where I'm sitting at the moment, it's on 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. at night.
So we really are interrupting your well, thank you for putting off your evening meal for a little bit longer for us. Welcome to the International Skills Summit. Can I ask you, certainly in terms of the way that Australia is involved in the WorldSkills International Network, why you believe it's important to be a part of it?
Look, thanks very much. And can I say from the onset, thanks Simon for the introduction, and Neil, congratulations. From what I've seen over the the day and a half so far, it's a fantastic initiative. This your live online skills summit, and I appreciate the opportunity to be part of it. So thank you very much for that. I'm just going to pick up on a couple of words that I heard you say in your introduction, Neil, and that was collaboration and competitiveness and how they work well together. And I think in the short period of time that I've been working for WorldSkills Australia, I've certainly been seeing that in a variety of ways. I've been involved with WorldSkills for some 30 odd years from a volunteer and I guess part of the vocational education training sector and running a number of organisations here. But coming on the other side of things, being part of WorldSkills, I certainly have seen things from a different point of view. More than ever, as I've heard some of the speakers talk previously, that the skills and development of skills and the ecosystem development is going to be critical to rebuilding our economies. Only recently, the Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Scott Morrison, declared on many occasions, and I've heard him speak on many occasions, that the economic recovery down here from COVID-19 will be a skills-led recovery. And we believe at WorldSkills Australia that we're in a great position to be a key component of the skills-led recovery in Australia. When we start to talk about benchmarking, and I've heard that term benchmarking talked about a lot over the last couple of days as well. I see that we're trying to achieve 5 key outcomes in Australia from, I guess, in moving forward. One is to improve the quality of our national vet system. And I think one way we can do that is to be part of that national or global community where we learn from others. And we're all trying to improve the quality of what we turn out in our vet system to make sure that the outcomes that we achieve with our young people is actually being productive in the workforces of the future. Secondly is to work, as Neil said before, in that shared development of standards of excellence. It's making sure that what we're doing across the international global network of WorldSkills is actually doing like-for-like comparisons in what we do, and I think that's important. We might think that we're doing some great things in our own country, but until you actually get out and benchmark against other countries and their systems, you really don't realise whether you're doing good or not so well in some of those areas. I know in Australia we're very keen to make sure that we uplift our capacity to compete at that international level in a whole range of new skill categories and occupational categories that we haven't participated in before. And by getting involved in those categories, we think that we will be able to assist our development of our training system and also the quality of our young people as they go into their skills and trades. We also believe that being part of that WorldSkills International Network allows us to profile our skills in Australia and actually put our skills champions and ambassadors on a pedestal both domestically and internationally. And we have an opportunity, like a lot of countries, for our young people to travel the world and to showcase what we do here in Australia. As I said, in my short time in WorldSkills Australia, within the organisation, one of the things I've noted is that there is and when Neil talked about collaboration, there's a great willingness of people to share research and the findings of that research across the world. And I know that going out and having a look and listening to, the member countries talk about what they're doing, I think we can learn so much more from each other. And I think, events like you're putting on here and invitations for us as competitors, if you like, to come and participate, I think is opening that door to that collaborative nature. So I thank you again for that. And lastly, I think the part of this is really about the global exchange of best practice. I know working in the vet sector for a number of years, we can learn so much more from talking and engaging with others. And I know, and when I look at what's happening in this WorldSkills community, especially over the last 12 months, and especially in the last 6 months even, where we've had so much of an impact on our economies, and even our vet systems have shut down to an extent where there's not much happening at all. I've seen, nations across the global community sharing what they're doing as far as online delivery and putting everything into a digital format and willing to share that with other countries as well. So you just got to look at the remote online competitions that people are engaging with across the world. And I think we're looking at how we can do things a little bit differently and a little bit better as we move forward.
Can I ask you, one of the things we've been debating and discussing over the last couple of days is the occasional experience I think all of our contributors have had, which is the sometimes lack of understanding of the importance of skills. So academic success people understand and can articulate and probably quantify, but when it comes to measuring skills and measuring benchmarking and understanding why it's important to be the best and compete in that way, sometimes there are confused looks here in the UK. What is it like in Australia? Do you have a similar portion of either the media or society or government who don't quite understand that yet?
I think there's a lot of conversation going on at the moment, and I'm really interested in highlighting the conversation which talks about, the difference between competency and versus excellence. So, we talk about competency-based training, and I think there's a lot of conversation here in Australia about, what does graded assessment look like? What does external assessment look like? What is the difference between someone who's just got through a course and what does excellence actually look like? So I think the notion of understanding what the levels of the different levels to I guess gauge what excellence is really important. So that's why I guess I'm starting that conversation more about the difference between the rise between competency and excellence and what those benchmarks look like. I think what we can do is to have the conversations that we can hear about, how we can look at what other countries are doing, levels of participation they're having, and the levels of success that they're having on the international WorldSkills competition base, and that opens the door for a conversation with us about why aren't we doing better, how are we doing in particular skill areas. Are some skills much going better than others, and are there other areas where we need to do more, and how can we learn from our international partners about what they're doing as well.
All right, many thanks for that, Trevor. Trevor Schwenke is CEO of WorldSkills Australia. And you can see our panel are all with us. Sanquei Lin is in Chinese Taipei, board member of WorldSkills International. And Sanquei, I know you have a presentation which is going to help us have an overview of the importance of skills development in Chinese Taipei. Good morning and welcome to the International Skills Summit here in the UK.
Hi, Simon and Neil. Thank you very much. So for the next few minutes, I give you some perspectives from the Chinese Taipei and from the WorldSkills International. Okay. May I have a slide? Okay. Yes. And okay. I'll give you some about the challenge right now. Of course, opportunity and what we have done in Taiwan, and also the new development of the WorldSkills International. Next slide, please. Yes, from this we can see that, of course, a lot of people are talking about the AI and the automation, and definitely the AI and automation will affect the jobs over the world. But what is the solution? One of the solutions, obviously, is upskill and reskill, and this is important. And in Taiwan, we have some approach. So I'm going to give you some. This one is about the youth. I think the most of the country have done the same system for the youth skill training and help them to upskill. But here, I would like to focus on the industry, academics, and the vocational training. This is a three-partized cooperation program. We can see that particularly for this program is for the high school, vocational high school students. They stay 1 year in the high school. The second year, they come to a vocational training center, finished about 2,000 hours training program. And then the third year to go to the business unity to practice. Why we need to create such kind of system? Because cost of business in Taiwan is small and medium size. It's about 97% of the company is small and medium size. And then they are lack of the capability to train their employee. So we create this kind of system: 3 year, 1 year school, second year training center, third year in the industry, and then connect to the 4-year technology. So it means that 3 plus 4, 7 years training, they become a very, very good skills worker. And except that last year when I was in Helsinki to participate WorldSkills Weeks, a lot of the discussion is focused on so-called adult apprenticeships. So in Taiwan, I would like to introduce one of the quite a unique system. Of course, we learned from Europe a long time ago. It means that we help the business unity to train their workers to transform because they need to upskill. But however, we support individuals to have their self-regular learning system, self-regular learning system. So this is the way what we have done. We provide any individual employee a virtual account. It's about 2,100 euros for 3 years. So it means that each year they can use about 700 euros to support them to learn. And they can find any courses. It's more than 5,000 courses in Taiwan they can pick up and join. After they finished their training program, and we was the training fee into their account. So this is individuals' regular learning. It's a long-term learnings program. The next slide, I will talk about a little bit about from the international approach. It's WorldSkills International. I think most of you also aware of that. We have the WorldSkills Occupational Standard. And this is quite a unique standard because this is not output, this is output standard. Because all over the world, international standard, most is input standard, and this is output standard, and it renews, update every 2 years. So it means that it's very close to the industry. So the idea is the original we set up this standard is try to looking for the skill excellence. So the expert uses the standard to identify who he or she is skill excellence. We can award a medal to them. Now we try to use this because this is the output standard. So we use this standard through our WorldSkills Capacity Building Center. We can come up some kind of WorldSkills certification. And if the most of the WorldSkills members can accept this certification, then we can increase the labor mobility. So thank you very much. This is a little bit I share with you today about what we have done special for the 3+4 system for the youth and for the individual employee. We support them for they have a lifelong learning program. Thank you very much.
Many thanks for that. And I think we've all learned a huge amount with some envy, I think, of some of the opportunities that are afforded to some of your young people. Sang Hui Lin, Chinese Taipei board member of WorldSkills International. This is about where and what next for global skills excellence. And if we can, let's go to Emma Meredith. Emma, you're International Director for the Association of Colleges. Welcome to the WorldSkills UK International Skills Summit. I want to ask you, if I can, first of all, about the FE sector, because that's taken an international outlook, which we now know, perhaps we've always known, but it's certainly coming to the fore, is crucial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's a really good time to look at internationalization in education in general, but particularly what the college sector's been doing and how it can help drive global ambitions around skills development. So just a bit of context, in the UK, we actually have a dedicated government international education strategy that was launched in 2019. And we've also now appointed by the government a UK education champion, international education champion, to push forward the UK's ambitions in terms of international education. And the activity doesn't just relate to generating income or bringing international students into the UK, but around partnership and development and working with our global partners, similar to the points we've heard from other speakers this morning. And in terms of what colleges are doing in that space, well, of course, we recruit international students, we develop skills partnerships and deliver training for partners all around the world. But we also engage in programs such as the Erasmus Plus Mobility Program, which is the European Union's international cooperation and training and placement program. And that's been really important, I think, for the college sector. Over 100 colleges in the UK have taken part in projects within Erasmus in the last few years. And I think it's with Erasmus that we can draw a lot of parallels with with WorldSkills competitions in terms of the benefits and the learnings that we derive from the programs and participation. And in fact, in 2019 AOC, we surveyed our members to see what kind of international work they were doing. And we found that 69% of the colleges that are involved in international education are also involved in skills competitions. So I think there's something similar there in terms of ambition and setting your sights nationally and internationally. So in terms of the benefits of colleges that have been working internationally and the parallels with skills development, well, certainly programs, for example, such as Erasmus, they develop a lot of employability and soft and technical skills within students. And again, this is where I think we've got quite a few parallels to skills competitions and the reasons for taking part in the competitions. So again, in 2019, when AOC, we asked our colleges, what benefits have you derived from Erasmus? 100% said that their students had developed self-confidence. 94% said they'd improved their team working skills, and 91% said they'd improved their problem-solving skills. So again, these are similar kinds of skills that we'd look for students to derive from engaging in competition. So whether it's Erasmus or another kind of activity or competitions, I think a lot of the benefits for students are the same, particularly students from disadvantaged backgrounds who perhaps haven't had as many opportunities. They really benefit from being taken out of their immediate environment and being offered these positive chances and opportunities. And I think that by improving student skills, we improve their employability in what is going to be increasingly a globally competitive market. And I think for the UK, we're at a turning point in our history as we exit the European Union. And again, the WorldSkills network with over 80 countries involved is a really good way for us to develop those partnerships and cooperation that the other panelists were talking about earlier. I think in terms of college staff, there is also a huge amount of benefit from taking part in competitions, from programs like Erasmus that raise international ambitions. There's opportunities for staff CPD to embed standards, engage with peers in other countries, and learn new kinds of teaching methodologies. So has all of this stopped, or is it still going despite COVID? Well, I think that we're all subject at the moment to local restrictions, national restrictions, a block on international travel in most cases. And even if we have to stay in the same place at the moment, we don't have to stay local in our thinking. And I think now is a very good time through digital means. And I know 2021 is the year of innovation for WorldSkills. It's a very good time for us to look at how we can use these digital skills, how we can use the technology to enhance opportunity. This is a worldwide situation. Everybody is pretty much in the same boat. So it's a good chance to look at how we can improve the digital skills of students, which I know is something that WorldSkills UK is looking at this year, particularly while the competition cycle in its traditional format paused. And I think the aspect of digital is going to become more important as a response to the global pandemic. And as countries all around the world look at their TVET systems and what kind of reforms they may need to bring in as a result of that. So I think just to sum up, I think our international outlook, it may be through a screen at the moment, but the ethos of internationalization and for colleges to keep on working and keep on working closely with their international partners through programs like Erasmus and skills competitions, that is here to stay, and we need to support that to continue.
We have some questions for the panel, and hopefully we have Sankwei and also Trevor still with us. Just before we go back to some of those questions, Emma, can I ask you, because obviously in terms of the Association of Colleges, you must have had a remarkable period of the last 8 months, because we've seen there's twofold, isn't it? There's almost a politicization of young people. There were the huge issues about exam results and how they were being judged. There were the question about whether young people were actually the ones who were causing the spike in the COVID infections. And there's now the query about whether colleges and universities, certainly those that are residential, should ever have opened. We've now had Wales who have said that definitely for 2021, GCSE, AS levels will not take place, and they'll be guided and marked in a very different way. The goalposts are changing for you almost on a monthly basis.
No, that's right, and I think we've, as AOC, we've been very pleased to support our members all the way through this COVID period since March. It's been incredibly busy, and I think, as Marion said in the opening remarks this morning, it's been a very challenging time for colleges. They have a lot to contend with at the moment operationally, also in terms of dealing with guidance and from the government and making sure they're adhering to that. And it's our job at AOC to interpret that for colleges and to help them with it. But you're absolutely right, there is an awful lot going on in the education landscape at the moment, and this is ahead of potentially an FE white paper as well, looking at reforming the system. So there has been a lot to contend with, and I hope we can at AOC continue to work with our partners in WorldSkills and other organisations to keep supporting colleges.
And one of the things we've been discussing again over the last couple of days is the way forward into the future. We're going to have some questions for you in a second. And one of the things I suppose we should be thinking about is what can be done now to make sure that the skills and the education, also almost like the part of the brain that we need to keep active, is being kept active in young people. There was a remarkable report that was, I think, on the radio yesterday or the day before, talking about the impact on very, very young children, toddlers and of that age, of the lockdown and when they haven't been to school, and how some of them are forgetting how to sit up straight and how to use cutlery, etc. on that level for their age group. For the age group that you're dealing with, there will be similar changes in mindset, I would imagine.
I mean, I think that there's an undoubted impact on young people. I think they are often the hardest hit in the pandemic. We've got to make sure that they are, through the college network, still able to receive the education, the training, the skills that they need, and that's where AOC, we need to work very closely with the government to make sure that's possible and to feed back some of the challenges that colleges are facing. But you're right. I mean, I think digital engagement, poverty, this is an area that we're looking at quite closely at AOC. We've probably done more work on this in the last year, I think, than ever before, and I know it's an area that's echoed by our counterparts in other countries. We need to look at what are the obstacles to digital skills, and there's a full apprenticeship training as well. What can we do to make sure that those opportunities are still there through the college network and other providers?
Emma, many thanks for that. Let's go to some questions for the panel. This is from James Prideaux, who's a skills builder, and actually makes some interesting points, almost at the core of what we're discussing. So James asks, how do we ensure consistency when measuring skills development across different countries and markets? He says at Skills Builder, we are currently gathering best practice of how our universal framework to measure and track progress against the essential skills is used by our international partners. But he says he's always aware of the potential for key cultural and contextual differences. So he wonders, are the building blocks for skills similar in all contexts? And I have to say, that is a very key question for me, because one of the things that I found when I was reporting, I'm here as an independent host, and my experience of reporting, for example, back from Kazan last summer was a lack of understanding and almost a lack of my own ability to explain how 65, 70 countries who were competing that year are able to be judged in skills on a same level that you might find in an academic written world. Should we go to Trevor Schwenke about that first? Trevor, what do you think? How do we ensure consistency when measuring skills development across different countries and markets, and particularly culture?
I think it's about WorldSkills International has done a tremendous job of that, of bringing the member countries together. With, I think the list count was 85 member countries. A lot of those countries have been in the vet sector in a very mature way for a long period of time. What I'm seeing at the moment, a lot of those countries, and I know UK and others have done a tremendous job in actually working with a lot of other newly developing countries to actually get their vet systems in place. And I think by us working together as a much stronger network and a broader network, we all need to help each other through that. And I think that's not the competition piece, that's the collaboration piece, when we start to work together to actually share those standards. And that takes a bit of time by mapping. I know we map what we're doing in Australia with what's happening from an international point of view. We spend a fair bit of time talking to our colleagues in other countries across different skill areas. And it's around sure that the people in our country with particular skill areas are actually linked into the right networks internationally. It's not about myself and my team from our point of view. It's actually making sure that we provide the opportunity and the framework for people across Australia to actually be able to network with their colleagues internationally and to be able to not just but be able to have those conversations about what they're doing, what the standards look like across the world. And I think once you go to international competition and look at the different various levels across countries, you get by competing in national competitions, you actually get to benchmark yourself against others. And then you can take back that information to your own country and say, well, these are the areas we're doing well. These are some of the areas where we need to improve our own training system. And I know from an Australian perspective, we, like all countries, there's a number of reviews going on about our vocational education training system at both the federal level and state levels. And I guess my hope is that we have the one conversation and not many conversations in Australia and also across the world. And I think that's the benefit will come in making sure that we can actually work together on a unique, standardised set of training outcomes.
Trevor, thank you for that. Can I put the same question to Sanquay? This idea of how we judge skills levels across different countries and different cultures. How do we make sure that we're judging like we like?
Yes, thank you very, very much. I think that just like I mentioned earlier that WorldSkills International, we have a WorldSkills occupation standard. And this is the standard we use to find out the skill excellency. But actually, this is a very good standard can use to educate, to train our young people to up skill. And especially we all know that the WorldSkills competition is our major event, but definitely the competition is now our final goal. Our final goal is to promote, have the more young people have the chance to learn the skill, and to increase and our vocational education and training system, also cooperation program. So in terms of to the developing country, we have the different programs. For example, I'm leading a program, is the Africa Skill Development Program. We cooperate with the WorldSkills Capacity Building Center. There are the three centers, Chinese Taipei, Russia, and Korea. Also cooperate with our major industry partner to help those developing countries develop their skill programs. So I think to use the standard, to use a standard is one to let it's kind of benchmark. So the developing country or the skill developing, they can use this as a good benchmark, and then through the international cooperation to promote and to increase their skill.
Sanquay, many thanks for that. Also, Emma and Trevor, stay with us because we have another question for the panel. Just before we do that, response on that from you, because Neil, one of the questions that we have had before is we've spoken ourselves about the way that there is sometimes a lack of understanding about how you can judge skills in the same way you can judge a degree or an exam or an essay.
And in building on what Sanquay has just said, I mean, the heart of this is the WorldSkills occupational standard and how that is put together, benchmarked with industry globally and education globally, and how that is tested in a competition pressure test environment with experts and judges and assessors from across the world. There is rigorous assessment goes on. There are medals at stake, literally, in terms of the international competition, and those prizes and those medals are hard fought and won. And behind all of that, though, is a system which is standardized across all the countries and member countries, which we all buy into and sign up to being measured against. Now, as part of the Year of Innovation, which Emma referenced for WorldSkills next year in the absence of of a competition in Shanghai, there will be a lot more work coming to the fore around explaining the system of standards and the system of benchmarking, and bringing to the fore the work we've been doing with international organizations globally, like the ILO and UNESCO and OECD, and looking at how we can translate those global standards into national TVET systems. So looking at how we can bring them into the UK, for example. And that's a huge piece of work that we've been talking about within WorldSkills, around moving all of that work to the fore, because there is global demand, I think, for driving up skill standards. And in the absence of a global benchmarking system, WorldSkills is the global benchmarking system at the moment. It is the only organization that has a way of testing systems against each other and training systems. And then we are in conversation as well with the OECD and others about formalizing all of that so that the standards can be used and referenced in UK and other global systems. And so to the point that was raised and the question that was raised, there's much more work to come in terms of sharing that with partners around how the WorldSkills system works and how the WorldSkills occupational standard can be used as a tool and a benchmark for all systems globally.
Can I ask you what I hope is not going to come across as a naive question in terms of judging skills? I'm going to see if any of the panel are aghast at this question, but I think it's an important question. So one of the beauties of travel and of meeting people from different countries is an understanding and a debate about how you think you do things very different than they do. So I've got a number of Australian friends. Some of them lived in this country for a number of years. Their view was, I can take one more British winter and then I'm going back home. Trevor, I'm sure will understand this and have probably heard it many times before. And the other thing they were very aware of is all the things that we do that are different, that are British, that are old-fashioned, that are outdated, that are antediluvian, and that they think that they're more comfortable. And the same way when we travel, you know, you go to a hotel in Russia, as we did last year, or in Australia, or in New York, wherever you go, whichever city or country in the world you go, and you think, that's interesting. This is all very different. This isn't how I don't feel. So when it's a service skill, or when it's something that is not a brick wall that has to be, or an aeroplane that has to fly, how do you bring in an area of leeway, if you like, for saying this may not be to my taste, or it may not be what I'm used to, but actually I can see objectively rather than subjectively that what I have here is something that's excellent.
Yeah, and that's about the standards that are set and how they're set, so that you can objectively assess the technical standard that's been reached, as well as the behavioural standard that comes through from the delivery of a service. We all experience service in different ways, but we all know when we've had excellent service as well. And so, that's the combination of the skill set that's being tested and the standard that's been set, and how that is judged, about whether you've reached that standard, and independent judges assessing that, as well as the mindset and the behaviour that comes from delivering a service. But if it's not a service, if it's building a brick wall, for example, and the other extreme is, have you really hit the excellence mark that is expected at WorldSkills? And that's what you see all the time through judging against the standards that have been agreed. And that's when you come to a skills competition, particularly an international skills competition, but even at a national level, you will see the attention to detail and the benchmarking against the standard it's being asked for and what's being required really being meticulously judged, so that you can then demonstrate whether you've hit that skill standard or not, and hit that standard of excellence that we're striving for increasingly, and particularly at a WorldSkills international level competition, where you have to hit that world-class standard in order to be able to receive a medal.
And I definitely saw that in Kazan, and I think many of us probably did. Thank you for that. Now this is our next, but by the way, thank you, James, for that question. If you have similar questions from any subject that we're dealing with within this session, please do just click on Ask a Question, place your name and also your job title so we can reference where you're from, and we will ask as many to the panel as we can. And indeed, that's the same for any session today. Now this is from Abhijit Prahanhanga, who says, now that WorldSkills is moved to 2022, this is a very good question actually, and I think a lot of people have been thinking about this. How will you go about keeping the competitors updated and plugged in? Thanks for that, Abhijit. Let's go first to Emma on this, Emma Meredith, who's International Director of the Association of Colleges. we kind of touched on this, but how do you keep that that enthusiasm and the skill set alive?
No, it's a very good question. I think, I mean, at AOC, we work closely with WorldSkills UK and our network of GIS across our membership in England and then in the devolved nations. And I think it's going to be critical that we keep using our network and our college ambassadors for WorldSkills in their network to keep up the momentum and the enthusiasm and the commitment to take part in the competitions and to build that up from grassroots level right the way up to the aspirations of the international competition. As I think I mentioned earlier, I think we need to use the time to develop digital skills, to look at ways until we can meet again in person, to use digital mediums so that we can actually keep on developing skills and get young people engaging in the competitions.
Many thanks for that. Let's ask the same question, if you can, to Trevor Shrenke, who is in Australia for us. Now that WorldSkills is moved to 2022, how will you go about keeping the competitors updated and plugged in?
We're probably in a different situation than what we actually haven't had our national competition to select an Australian Skilloroos team to compete in Shanghai at this stage. So we've actually had to go to the stage where we've just once again this week had to postpone our national competition through to mid to late next year for that selection process. So, but what we've done to keep those that have actually, achieved the success at a regional level and have the opportunity and registered for our national competition, we've actually put in place an online national training program for every one of the 55 open skill categories, and we've got another 15 to 16 veteran skills categories as well. So we've actually created an environment for each one of those individual categories where we've brought in experts, we brought in the partners, the businesses, and the industry to support them through a training program. So each individual now has a training program, and I think there's 450 young competitors at the moment that are on individual training program. We do need to extend that another 4 months now that we've had to postpone it again. But I think that will keep those competitors. Our national cycle within Australia will actually be moved another 12 months as well. So where we were going to run regional competitions across Australia in 2021, that actually moves to 2022. So a fair bit of change going on at the moment. When I look back at what's happening in the colleges at the moment, we're probably in a different position that a lot of the colleges are starting to open face-to-face delivery, albeit in a different mode than what they've done in the past. From a WorldSkills Australian point of view, we're having conversations with training providers about how we can embed more of our competitions in more day-to-day delivery, rather than having them as standalone competitions into the short to medium, long, and maybe longer term, because it takes a lot of resources to run regional competitions in a standalone environment. But by integrating them back into our training programs, we're building that excellence back into day-to-day vocational education training, hopefully as well.
Abhijit, many thanks for the question, and thank you for that answer, Trevor. Let's put the same question to Sanquai Lin, who is in Chinese Taipei, also a board member of WorldSkills International. How has this delay to WorldSkills moving to 2022 affected you, and how have you kept competitors updated and plugged in and ready to go?
Yeah, I think this is a very, really good question. Because the WorldSkills International competition moved to 2021 Shanghai to 2022. It means that from right now, almost 2 years, WorldSkills International, we don't have any major event. But it's the same situation faced by the regional competition too. So WorldSkills Asia, we're going to discuss about what are we going to do for the next year, 2021. Is any possible we have a virtual regional competition to replace the face-to-face competition? From the national level, Taiwan, fortunately, we did not very serious effect by the COVID-19 pandemic. So this year, just September, last month, we had our 50th national skill competition. Because this year we joined the WorldSkills International 50 years. So we expand national skill competition this year. and it's very successful. And we already select our competitor for the 2021. Now it moved to 2022. Fortunately, WorldSkills, the GA meeting already agreed that we are going to raise the age limit for the 2022. So it means that anyone qualified to go to 2021, those competitors can continue to compete in 2022. But at the same time, our national competition the next year which was still going on. So we're going to use our national competition and others event to keep the competitor, to keep the uh, youngest to keep their enthusiasm on skill and momentum. So this is what we're going to do in Chinese Taipei.
Sanquai, many thanks for that. And that question to you, I mean, your enthusiasm, for those who don't know, Dr. Neil Bentley Gottman, his enthusiasm never diminishes, but it is, there's a lot of people's enthusiasm that is required to be kept up with this.
Yeah, and you know, what happens internationally, different countries have different ways of selecting their teams to go and compete in the international competition. And a bit like Sanquai was saying from Chinese Taipei, we have already selected our team. No, we have selected our squad. So there are a number of people who are in potential training for Shanghai. And what we're going to do to keep them motivated is keep them engaged, keep going with the online training, keep going with the mindset training that we do, and introduce over the next year more international pressure testing, more friendly competitions, if you like, with other countries, so that they can get that international experience as part of the training on the road to Shanghai. Because, you know, this is an opportunity of an extended training program, and obviously it'll be a test not only their motivation and enthusiasm, but also resilience and commitment. And so that's what we'll be looking to do in recalibrating the UK cycle in terms of the young people who are currently in training, vying for a spot on the plane to Shanghai, and we'll be choosing the team who would go to Shanghai earlier in 2022.
Many thanks for that, Neil, and also many thanks to the panel for this session, Where and What Next for Global Excellence, to Sanquai Lin in Chinese Taipei, also a board member for WorldSkills International, to Trevor Schwenke, CEO of WorldSkills Australia, and also to Emma Meredith, the International Director of the Association of Colleges. Thank you all for joining us this morning. I should also add, we were hoping to be joined by Nazreen Mani, who's Executive Director at GAN Global, but unfortunately technical issues prevented that. But hopefully we will get an opportunity to chat with Nazreen another time, perhaps on another day. But apologies to Nazreen, because I know we were struggling for some time to try and connect with you. So that is it for this session, and we are back at 12 o'clock. And at 12 o'clock, we'll be discussing the WorldSkills legacy and looking at how to embed excellence across the skill system. We're going to be in the company of Chris Humphries, CBE, President of WorldSkills, also Dr. Susan James-Ruddy, who's Director of Scope and Head Education for Social Sciences at the University of Oxford, and also remaining with us in the studio, Dr. Neil Bentley Gottman, OBE, who is the CEO of WorldSkills UK. So please join us then. If you missed any of the other sessions in the hour until we come back, some of those sessions are already on the WorldSkills UK website. If you just search for the page that is dedicated to this, the online International Skills Summit, you will find it. And after this event has finished, after this afternoon's event closes, the rest of those will be online over the next coming days. But meanwhile, we will see you at around about 12 noon. Have a good rest of your morning.